Welcome to English Succour. Let's look at the line by line explanation of the seventh part of the chapter The Enemy by Pearl S. Buck. So let's move on. In the story so far, we have seen that the servants at Dr. Sadao Hoki's house became more watchful against them, and they were not at all pleased with what Dr. Sadao did for the white man. Moreover, they issued and they had blamed their master and mistress of not thinking of their own nation. The servants' discontent was not hidden from Hannah, hence, she was extremely perturbed. The story continues. As for Sadao, every day he examined the wound carefully. The last stitches had been pulled out this morning, and the young man would in a fortnight be nearly as well as ever. So he hoped that within a fortnight the American man will get recovered. So every day he would go to examine the injury. Sadao went back to his office and carefully, when he saw that Hannah was very much disturbed, so he decided to take some action. So he went back to his chamber and carefully typed a letter to the chief of police reporting the whole matter of how he came across the body of an American soldier of war at the Japanese coast. So the report starts like this. On the 21st day of February, an escaped prisoner was washed up on the shore in front of my house. So he just wrote the report up to here, and then he stopped. So far he typed, and then he opened a secret drawer of his desk and put the unfinished report into it. So at this point again we see that Sadao was again in a fix. He was unable to decide whether he should write the report, because what would be the outcome of this report? As soon as the police, the chief of police will get informed, they'll come and arrest the American prisoner of war, and then everything is clear what would be the fate of this man. On the seventh day after that, two things happened. Now we should remember the significance of two things on the seventh day. In the morning, the servants left altogether, their belongings tied in large square cotton kerchiefs. When Hannah got up in the morning, she found that no work was done and the house was not cleaned, even the food was not prepared, and she understood everything, that the servants finally had made up their mind to leave, to quit the job. She was dismayed, she was very much sad and even terrified. Why was she dismayed? Because the servants would leave and they'll not be there. Not only this was not the reason that she was unhappy that she'll have to work all alone, but all the servants had been working there for a long time. They were just like family members, and she was terrified because she doubted that what if the servants report the entire matter to the police. But her pride as a mistress would not allow her to show it. So whatever fear and sadness she had, she didn't try to express those feelings in front of the servants, because she had to maintain the dignity as a mistress. Instead, on the other hand, she inclined her head gracefully when they appeared before her before leaving in the kitchen, and she paid them off whatever due payment they had. She paid them off, and she gracefully expressed her gratitude towards them for all the services they did for her and for her family. And this was a very sentimental moment. They were all crying, but she didn't cry, and in this way she tried to keep herself bold. And the cook and the gardener had served Sadao since he was a little boy, so this was a crucial moment for them to leave. And Yumi also cried because of the children, because the children would miss her. She was sure. She was so sad that after she just walked for a few steps, she had come back to Hannah. And when she came to Hannah again, she said that if the baby misses me too much tonight, send for me, call for me, send a message for me. I am going to my own house and you know where it is. And Hannah responded just by thanking her and with a smile on her face. But she had already taken a firm decision that she would not at all call them. She'll manage the things on her own. She made the breakfast. Now the next day or the very day she made the breakfast, and Sadao helped her with the children. Neither of them spoke of the servants beyond the fact that they were gone. That's all. But after Hannah had taken morning food to the prisoner, she came back to Sadao. And then she became a little frank with Sadao this moment, but she just summoned all her courage and decided to talk to Sadao. Why is it we cannot see clearly what we ought to do? She asked him. Even the servants see more clearly than we do. Why are we different from other Japanese? She puts this question in front of Sadao, that why are they different from other Japanese? Why is their behavior different from other Japanese? When on one hand the other Japanese, including their servants, are not accepting a white man, so why don't they have any hesitation? Sadao didn't answer, but although he didn't respond to this question of Hannah, but he was contemplating over her this statement and her this question. But a little later he went into the room where the prisoner was and said briskly, a little curtly and a little rudely and quickly, "Today you may get up on your feet. I want you to stay up only for 5 minutes at a time, and tomorrow you may try it twice as long, means 10 minutes. It would be well that you get back your strength as quickly as possible." So in this way he gave necessary instructions to the American prisoner of war, that he need to work on a regular basis on different exercises for the betterment of his condition. So looking at this attitude and this strict way of instruction, the young man got terrified. And Sadao noticed that terror on the face of the man. He saw the flicker of terror on the young man's face, and that was still very pale. The face was still pale. A kind of whiteness was there, but the boy just decided to follow the orders. Evidently, he was determined to say more, and he wanted to thank Dr. Sadao for saving his life. But Sadao didn't allow him to do so. Sadao said coldly, a little coldly, without showing any sentiments. He's a little strictly. He saw, when he said so, again he saw the same glimpse of terror in the eyes of the boys. Terror as unmistakable as an animal's, or of an innocent animal. The scars, and when he got terrorized, Sadao noticed that the scars on his the scars or the marks of injuries on his neck became crimson or bright red for a moment, and he just felt to ask about those scars, but he decided not to ask. In the same afternoon, the second thing happened. Now, first thing was all the servants left, and now second thing, Hannah was working hard on unaccustomed, unhabitual hard work labor, because all the servants left. She was not habitual of working in the kitchen and just managing all the household chores. So when she was busy, she saw a messenger come to the door in official uniform, and her hands went weak, and as soon as she caught sight of this man, she became weak, and she got frightened, and she could not draw her breath. the servants, and she doubted, she feared that the servants might have informed the police by this time. The servants must have told already. She immediately ran to Sadao, and she was almost gasping, breathing heavily, and unable to utter a single word when she reached to Sadao. But by then, this time, this messenger had already followed her through the garden, and he was there standing in front of Sadao. And she pointed at him helplessly that there is a man. Sadao looked up from his book, and he was in his office. The office was actually the other partition of which was thrown open to the garden for the southern sunshine, to receive the sunshine from the southern direction. What is it now? He inquired the messenger. He wanted to know the purpose of his coming. He asked the messenger, and then he rose, seeing the man's uniform, and he rose to give respect for the uniform. So the messenger informed Sadao that he is demanded in the palace, as the old general, means General Takima, is in pain again. So this was the reason that for the arrival of the messenger, he had actually come to tell Dr. Sadao that the general is again in trouble, and he is again experiencing cardiac arrest or heart pain maybe, and he requires his attention immediately. Oh, Hannah breathed. Is that all? So at this moment, Hannah's behavior seemed a little awkward, and the messenger was also surprised. What did she mean by is that all? He said, is this not enough? Whether she was expecting for some more, that the general is experiencing pain. Indeed it is, she replied, and she felt a little embarrassed for her overexcitement. Now when Sadao came to say goodbye, and now Sadao had to go to see the old General Takima, and when he came, Hannah was in the kitchen, and but she just stood there without, just absent-mindedly she stood there, and indeed, she was looking very much perturbed and anxious. Sadao noticed, and Sadao also became very much concerned for Hannah. And the children were asleep at the moment, and she sat merely resting for a moment. And she was more exhausted from her fear than from her work. So the story will be continued. These are word meanings with synonyms. Do study these words for the enrichment of your vocabulary skills. Thank you.